Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel World Conflict Monitor. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today, we are diving into one of the most shocking developments inside Russia. Ordinary Russians are now openly demanding that President Vladimir Putin resign after the country has shockingly run out of gasoline. This situation is not just a small shortage or a minor crisis, but something that has shaken the very foundation of the Russian economy, society, and political stability. To understand this crisis, let us carefully look at its exterior, its interior, its performance in the real world, the so-called safety features that were supposed to protect Russia, the unique selling points that made the Russian state appear strong, the price being paid for these policies, and, finally, the conclusion that tells us where Russia might be heading in the days to come. From the exterior, what we are witnessing in Russia is chaos visible to the outside world. Fuel lines stretching across cities, gas stations with empty pumps, and drivers waiting for hours just to get a few liters of gasoline. Videos have surfaced of frustrated Russians shouting, honking, and in some cases even physically confronting gas station staff, desperate to secure fuel for their vehicles. Russia, which once prided itself on being the energy superpower of the world, is now facing an unprecedented reality where ordinary citizens cannot even fill up their cars. The exterior view of the crisis shows clear signs of a nation in shock, because fuel is not only about mobility, but about survival. Food distribution, emergency services, agriculture, and transportation all depend on it. The exterior picture is bleak. Shelves in some rural areas are already running low on basic goods because delivery trucks cannot operate. Farmers are struggling to harvest crops without fuel, and taxi services are collapsing in big cities. To the outside observer, the irony is breathtaking. The largest exporter of oil and gas in the world has left its own people stranded at empty pumps. Moving to the interior, the inside story of this crisis is even more disturbing and complicated. Russia's gasoline shortage is not due to a lack of oil reserves. The country has enormous oil fields, pipelines, and refineries. But the real problem lies in mismanagement, corruption, international sanctions, and the regime's obsession with fueling its war in Ukraine rather than its people's needs. Western sanctions have crippled Russia's refining industry, cutting off essential parts, technology, and investments needed to keep refineries working smoothly. On top of that, the Kremlin prioritized exporting fuel abroad to bring in foreign currency, leaving domestic markets undersupplied. And with the war dragging on, much of the available fuel has been redirected to military-use tanks, trucks, drones, and supply chains for the Russian army. Inside Russia, the average citizen is treated as a lower priority than the war machine. Internally, resentment is building. Russians who were once silent or supportive of Putin's special military operation are now questioning whether their sacrifices are worth it. Housewives, taxi drivers, farmers, and even businessmen are saying openly that the government has betrayed them. When people cannot drive to work, cannot feed their families, and cannot warm their homes, patriotism and propaganda start to lose their power. The interior picture is one of frustration boiling into anger, anger boiling into protest, and protest turning into a demand: Putin must go. Looking at performance, we must analyze how the Russian state is performing under this pressure. Simply put, its performance is collapsing. The government has announced emergency measures, such as restricting exports of fuel and promising to prioritize domestic needs. But these promises are failing to produce results. In some regions, gasoline prices have tripled in just a few weeks. Farmers say they cannot plant winter crops, which threatens food security in the coming months. Public transportation is becoming unreliable because bus operators cannot secure enough fuel, and ordinary citizens are paying the price with lost wages, lost business, and lost trust in the authorities. In performance terms, the Russian state is failing to perform its most basic duty, providing stability and security for its people. Instead, it is performing well only in one area, cracking down on dissent. Police have been deployed to control angry crowds at fuel stations, and some protesters calling for Putin's resignation have been arrested. Yet no matter how much repression is used, performance on the economic front cannot be faked. When a government cannot deliver gasoline in a country overflowing with oil, performance is undeniably a failure. If we think about safety features, Russia always claimed it had strong safeguards against crisis. The Kremlin boasted of its massive foreign reserves, its control of natural resources, and its so-called economic sovereignty. But now, those safety features are proving useless. Sanctions have penetrated deeper than expected, showing that Russia's economy was far more vulnerable than Putin admitted. Domestic fuel rationing, which should have been a backup plan, has been poorly implemented, leading to chaos instead of stability. The safety net that ordinary Russians expected from their government, a promise that no matter what happens abroad, at least basic needs will be met, has completely collapsed. Instead of protecting its citizens, the state is protecting only its elites and its war. Safety features that should have worked, such as strategic reserves and price controls, are riddled with corruption. Reports are emerging of black markets where gasoline is sold at 10 times the normal price, and only those with connections to local officials can secure supplies. For the average Russian, the so-called safety features of the state are nothing more than illusions. When we examine the unique selling points, Russia once advertised itself to the world as a reliable energy superpower, a nation that could always be trusted to supply oil and gas to its people and its allies. This was a key pillar of its strength and influence. Energy was Russia's brand, its ultimate bargaining chip on the global stage. But today, that unique selling point is collapsing. How can Russia sell itself as an energy superpower when its own citizens cannot find gasoline? The world is watching closely, and countries that once depended on Russian fuel are realizing the risks of relying on Moscow. In fact, this crisis may accelerate the global shift away from Russian energy as buyers in Asia, Africa, and Europe seek more reliable partners. Domestically, Putin's unique selling point as the strong leader who guaranteed stability is fading fast. For decades, Russians tolerated authoritarianism because it came with stability, jobs, and full shelves. Now, even that bargain is breaking down. The Kremlin's brand is losing credibility at home and abroad. Then comes the price, the true cost of this crisis. For ordinary Russians, the price is measured in lost income, lost opportunities, and growing desperation. A taxi driver who cannot find fuel loses his only source of livelihood. A farmer who cannot harvest his crops loses a year of work. A family who cannot afford skyrocketing fuel prices loses its ability to travel, heat, or even cook. The price is also political. For the first time in years, we are seeing louder voices demanding Putin's resignation, not from exiled opposition figures, but from ordinary Russians inside the country. The price for Putin personally is his legitimacy. He built his image on being the guarantor of Russia's stability, but now he is the author of its instability. Internationally, the price is also severe. Russia's reputation as an energy superpower is collapsing, and its ability to finance the war in Ukraine may weaken if domestic unrest grows stronger. The cost of prioritizing war over citizens is now hitting home, and it may be higher than the Kremlin can pay. In conclusion, what we are seeing is not just a gasoline shortage, it is a crack in the foundation of Putin's Russia. The exterior shows chaos and anger on the streets. The interior reveals corruption, mismanagement, and misplaced priorities. The performance of the state is failing, the safety features are broken, the unique selling points are collapsing, and the price is devastating for both ordinary Russians and the regime itself. Demands for Putin's resignation are no longer whispers but shouts. And while it is too early to say whether this crisis will bring down the Kremlin, it is clear that something fundamental has changed. Russians are waking up to the reality that their government is not invincible, that their patience is not endless, and that even in a land overflowing with oil, the people can be left without fuel. The gasoline shortage is more than an economic crisis, it is a political earthquake. The future of Russia is now more uncertain than ever, and the days ahead may bring even greater turmoil. This is World Conflict Monitor, and we will continue to follow these shocking developments closely.